we want to start. We have many wonderful speakers. We will start with, you see him already, His Holiness Krishna Kshetra Maharaj, among other things, a scholarly companion of Srila Gurudev. So we look forward to hear from you, Maharaj, very soon. After that, we will continue with His Holiness, who was that? Bhaktividya Purna Maharaj. Yes, no, with His Holiness Giridhari Swami. Sorry, the schedule changed. We got more speakers than we, yes. Krishna Kshetra Maharaj, Giridhari Maharaj, after half an hour or so. Then we continue with His Holiness Bhaktividya Purna Maharaj from Mayapur, and we'll end with His Holiness Lokanath Maharaj. So this is a blessed Sunday. There's no doubt about it. So Maharaj, would you maybe, I just got this message that maybe you would like to do a short prayer or a short kirtan or something short to open this auspicious day.
Oh.
Can be Vande Hamad, something.
Okay.
Yes?
I can just offer pranati. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupakada Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuttapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavangscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatang Vitam Tang Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitangscha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Thank you very much, Maharaj. Now the morning session is opened, and I would like to say a few words of introduction about His Holiness, so we know who we are hearing from, because some of you might not know him. So this is His Holiness Krishna Kshetra Swami. He is a disciple of Srila Prabhupada since 1972. Yes. He distributed Srila Prabhupada's books from 73 to 75. Then he served as a Pujari Maharaj in Amsterdam, my city. I didn't know that. Amsterdam and Schloss Rettershof in Germany. And then between 77 and 79, he traveled and preached with knowing nobody less than Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj and Harikesh Maharaj, Bhakti Sudhir Goswami, Dwarkesh Prabhu, and Devamrita Swami throughout Eastern Europe. That must have been something. And then 1982 to 1985, he oversaw Lord Nrsingadev worship in Singhachalam, Germany. In 1987, he became an initiating guru by the blessings of the GBC body. Then up to 1995, he helped compile and publish the big book Pancharatra Pradeep, ISKCON's manual for temple worship. He also served ISKCON's GBC as the Minister for Deity Worship until 2005. I think you also, by the way, this beautiful photo is from this lovely magazine, Archana. I think you are also involved in this production of this magazine, right? Yes. So it's so great. I mean, I still have it. It's so wonderful. Okay, so then it went on and on. Let's see, where was I? Yeah, he served as the Minister for Deity Worship till 2005. And then he also, this was a different level, encouraged by ISKCON's senior leaders, in 1995, he resumed formal academic study, which he had interrupted in 1972. And he completed a BA in religious studies at the University of California, Santa Barbara, where Giriraj Maharaj lives, and an MA in the study of religion at the Graduate Theological Union in Berkeley, and then a Master of Studies in the study of religion at the University of Oxford, UK, and a Doctor of Philosophy, I think, Doctor of Philosophy, yeah, at the University of Oxford, and he finished his studies in 2003. Based on his doctoral dissertation, he then published Attending Krishna's Image, Chaitanya Vaishnava Murti Seva as Devotional Truth, with Routledge Hindu Studies series. He is now a research fellow of the Oxford Center for Hindu Studies, and he also acts as the Dean of Studies at Bhaktivedanta College in Radegast, Belgium, where he has been teaching since 2002. It's also one of my temples, as during several previous years and now, continuing after his taking formal sannyas vows, Janmashtami 2014, Krishna Kshetra Swami travels extensively for teaching, counseling, and to support spiritual communities in the Vaishnava devotional tradition. I say no more. Maharaj, the floor is yours. And please enlighten us.
Thank you, Rati Manjari Mataji, for that kind introduction. And thank you, Dhruva Maharaj Prabhu, for kindly inviting me to take part in this. As I understand, I should stop in about 20 minutes. Is that right? To
It's
keep
probably
to the
right.
schedule.
Yeah, more or less,
Okay.
20, 25. Yeah.
All right, so I'll keep it short. I will begin with not my earliest memory of His Holiness Tamal Krishna Goswami, but with one that went quite deeply into my memory. And this was on the occasion of Srila Prabhupada's Vyasa Puja in London in 1977. Some of you may know Srila Prabhupada made this incredible journey despite his health condition from Vrindavan to London in September of 1977. And it was the time of Janmashtami and Srila Prabhupada's Vyasa Puja. So we were all blessed with Prabhupada's personal presence for his Vyasa Puja event. And what I especially remember from that event is Srila Prabhupada sitting in his makeshift palanquin the devotees had made to carry him because he was no longer walking, in the room in the manner which is used as now it's a kind of reception room. And standing immediately next to Srila Prabhupada and facing all of us who were facing Srila Prabhupada was Tamal Krishna Goswami. And Tamal Krishna Maharaj was requested to speak the life story of Srila Prabhupada. And so imagine yourself being in a similar situation, being in the presence of your guru, especially your guru who it's clear to everyone is preparing to leave the world. So in that situation, Tamal Krishna Maharaj very nicely told the whole story of Srila Prabhupada's life as he had heard from Srila Prabhupada in the course over the years during conversations. Sometimes Prabhupada would say something about his life in a lecture, but it was so interesting to see how he would sometimes look over to Srila Prabhupada to get confirmation if he was speaking properly, if he was representing Srila Prabhupada properly. And Prabhupada would turn slightly and gesture with his head. He would nod, yes, it is like that. Yes, it was like that. And what we could see from that exchange was a deep mutual appreciation, I would say, especially, of course, Tamal Krishna Maharaj, deep appreciation, profound appreciation of Srila Prabhupada. The fact that he knew so much about Srila Prabhupada's life at that time, I think most of us knew very little about Prabhupada's life before he came to America. So that was a very striking moment for me, and I think for many other devotees. I would say, though, that my relationship with Tamal Krishna Goswami really began in 1995. I met him in Gainesville, Florida, and we were chatting, and the subject came up about my service and my future, and I explained to him that His Holiness Sri Dayananda Goswami was encouraging me to go back to university. And I was not certain what to do. I was thinking it's an interesting idea, but in those days especially, this was uncharted territory for devotees. Anyway, we were discussing, and as I explained how Maharaj Sri Dayananda Maharaj was encouraging me, I mentioned how devotees in Mayapur were encouraging me to be involved in the establishment of a Mayapur University, which Srila Prabhupada had spoken of wanting. And the devotees in Mayapur, I was objecting and saying that I don't have any academic qualifications, so how can I be involved in that? And the devotees in Mayapur were saying, oh, don't worry about that. For scholars, for professors, we will simply bring retired professors from India, from especially Calcutta, and they will teach in our university. They will be attracted and so on. And when I reported that to Tamal Krishna Maharaj, he kind of slammed his fist on the table in front of him in a very forceful way and said, that's what's wrong with Mayapur. They're still thinking like hippies. And in the same breath, he said, you should go back to university. And he said it with such, there was no doubt in his mind, and then suddenly there was no doubt in my mind that this is what I should do. So it was very soon after that that I went back to university, and it was very soon after that that Tamal Krishna Goswami registered at Southern Methodist University in Dallas. And then over the next few years, I was fortunate to be very much in contact with Goswami Maharaj, especially because of his interest to be connected with another devotee who was going through a similar process that he was. So Goswami Maharaj would call me on the phone. I was at University of California, Santa Barbara. He was in Dallas. And he would call me up and say, so, what's going on? What's happening? How is it going with your studies? What kind of issues are coming up in your classes? He would kind of interrogate me that way. And he would report the same about his own experience. And in this way, we were sharing notes, so to say. And this continued as eventually Goswami Maharaj finished in Dallas and proceeded to Cambridge in the UK. I finished in California and proceeded to Oxford in the UK. Then we a little bit changed our program. Instead of speaking by phone, I would go to Cambridge for a weekend, about once a month, and spend the weekend with Goswami Maharaj in his wonderful house, the Willow House, as it was called. And again, we would discuss and we would discuss and we would question, what are we doing and what is the purpose of all of this? And this leads me to a general point I want to express appreciation about Goswami Maharaj, is how utterly consequential he was. He was, with every move he made, everything he undertook, he was utterly and completely serious and consequential. Whatever he would do had to be first class. And it had to be significant. It had to have a purpose. And the bigger purpose that he saw for himself, I would say, and I've written about this in an article that I wrote about him called A Tremendous Connection, Reflections on TKG's Final Visit to Bhaktivedanta Manor. His bigger purpose, we can say, was to help us, devotees in ISKCON, to understand and appreciate the tremendous connection that we have with the Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition, first and foremost, of course, with Srila Prabhupada, but also the previous acharyas. And I explain in this article, because I'm speaking about this final visit and its significance, and the talk that Goswami Maharaj gave at that time, because that day was Vasant Panchami. It was a day of remembering the appearance and disappearance of several acharyas. It was also the day of Goswami Maharaj's, of his initiation into sannyas 30 years before. And so in the course of his talk, he is sort of weaving together all of these elements for himself and also for his audience in wonderful ways. As I said, he was very consequential in his actions, and one evidence of this, I would say, is the impact that he had in the academic world. And one indicator of this impact is the issue of the Journal of Vaishnava Studies that was dedicated to his memory. Satyaraj Prabhu, Stephen Rosen, who is the chief editor of the journal since 25 years or something now, he decided to dedicate one issue of the journal to Tamal Krishna Goswami. And the articles in this journal are all by the different scholars who were impacted by Tamal Krishna Goswami. There are 12 articles, including my own, and a 13th article, which is Tamal Krishna Goswami's article that he had begun with Ravi Gupta, Radhika Raman Prabhu, called Krishna and Culture, What Happens When the Lord of Vrindavan Moves to New York City. This was the title of this article. And I would say that much of Tamal Krishna Goswami's personal reflections, which he wrote about, especially in his book, A Hare Krishna at Southern Methodist University, he's reflecting on his own life. And so we might say that all of these reflections together could be called What Happens When an American young person in the middle of the 20th century moves to Vrindavan. So the kind of inverse of this article, which he actually wrote. And this reflection of Tamal Krishna Maharaj was inseparable from his reflections about the meaning, the significance of our movement as it is spreading all over the world, the significance of being rooted in the tradition of all the Vaishnava acharyas and finding roots now in the West. This was very much a concern of Tamal Krishna Goswami. This was very much part of the reason, I would say integral to his reason why he ventured into the academic world. I'll just end with a small humorous somewhat humorous exchange I had with him soon after he moved to Cambridge and began working on his doctoral research and writing. And soon after I settled in, well, I had been in Oxford a bit longer. He called me up and he said, you know, I was beginning to, I was studying Sanskrit in Dallas as part of my undergraduate course. I did 1 year of formal study of Sanskrit, and that was it was very, I enjoyed it very much, and I did very well. As we know, Tamal Krishna Maharaj was excellent in everything. He was the best student of his main professor in Dallas. That professor reported that he had been his best student in 35 years of teaching. He said, but now the work I'm doing does not require Sanskrit because I'm researching about Srila Prabhupada. I'm writing about Srila Prabhupada and his work in the English language. But I'm worried that I'm going to lose what I have learned. I'm going to forget what I've learned of Sanskrit. So what should I do? He was asking me for advice. As he would often do, he would ask devotees for advice on so many things. He would consult. So he asked me, what should I do? So I made a few suggestions. I said, well, Maharaj, if you were working on the Brahma Samhita, so why not now take that and make an analysis, a grammatical analysis of every verse of Brahma Samhita? No, that's not it. Why don't you, I gave 2, 3, 4 suggestions of what he might do to keep, through self-study, keeping up his Sanskrit. And each one he rejected. He said, no, that's not going to work. Finally, he said, the only way that I'm going to be able to keep up the Sanskrit practice is if there is money in it. I said, Maharaj, what do you mean? He said, if you will agree, then we'll make a deal. You're working also on Sanskrit. So if each of us promises that every day we will be spending a certain amount of time working on her Sanskrit, that if one day we miss, then the person who misses has to admit and has to pay the other of us a certain amount for that day missed. And I said, yeah, okay, why not? And then we discussed how much should we pay, and we started with £1. And Maharaj said, no, come on, £1, that's nothing. It's no point, that's useless. So we ended up, it was going to be £5. £5 if you missed. And then Maharaj said, but let's make this for 5 days a week, okay? Not 7, because, things come up. So 5 days. All right, 5 days a week. And for how long? 45 minutes. Okay, 45 minutes. So this was the deal. And it was concluded when Maharaj said, and you can be 100% sure that I am never going to have to pay you for this. I'm never going to miss a day because I will never stoop down to paying you for this. So that was kind of, nice, sweet exchange we had. We did keep it up for, I don't know, several months. And then circumstances changed. So my last conversation with Tamal Krishna Goswami, he was again asking me for advice. He wanted to get some ideas how to write the final chapter of his doctoral dissertation. And I had no idea, because he was writing about Srila Prabhupada and Raga Nuga Bhakti, how to write that chapter. So that was our final conversation. He was living in Oxford by that time. He did not come back as we expected him the day we expected him. Krishna had another plan. But I want to say that the book, the final writing of him, which was completed finally, eventually, by His Grace Garuda Prabhu, a living theology of Krishna Bhakti, essential teachings of A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, is Goswami Maharaj's, we can say, magnum opus, and certainly it deserves all attention by all of us devotees, appreciating how he was attempting to reach out to the educated audience, the wider world, to give them appreciation of Srila Prabhupada and the wonderful tradition of Krishna Bhakti that Srila Prabhupada gave us all. So I will stop there. Srila Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai.
Yeah, Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. It's very, very interesting to hear from you, being in the same field of exploration. I mean, not accomplishment, rather, the studies. And it's so nice to have you with us, Maharaj, that you actually, because you know what it means. Yeah, you did so many studies and you accomplished things. I'm sure he was delighted to have your company. Personally, actually, I heard that His Holiness Giridhari Swami is not there yet, so you can carry on.
Oh.
And yes, I don't know how long, but we would like to hear more. So I just wanted to ask you, I actually was fortunate to visit Goswami Maharaj at Willow House, but of course many have not. So could you maybe if it's not too, if it's to your liking, could you express a little bit what was the feeling of that house? I mean, what was it like? What do you remember of it? Because we had a photo, we had video yesterday of the beautiful Dallas temple, but very few people have visited Goswami Maharaj there. So could you give us some of your impressions?
Okay. Somehow it very much fit to Goswami Maharaj's character. This was a house that had been built in the 1930s. It was designed by an architect. It was in this Art Deco style. And it was very spacious, and it had a very large garden space around it. It was a very elegant house. I never dared to ask how much they were paying rent for it. I thought it must be a fortune. Of course, devotees, especially one lady, as I understood,
Shamala Saki.
financing it. Sorry?
Shamala Saki.
Yes, Shamala Saki.
Running a nursing agency. And
yes,
apparently, getting good revenue, and she was paying for the Willow House. She paid towards the studies. She was financing practically the whole thing, as far as I understand. Yeah, very glorious service. Yeah.
Yeah, so what more can I say about that house? The thing was, though, he had all facility, But as we know, Tamal Krishna Goswami loved to have devotee association, and there were just not very many devotees in the Cambridge area. So he had his servant and his secretary with him, staying with him. Sarvabhauma Prabhu, I'll never forget, later when they came to Oxford, and this is the point, he finally moved to Oxford just to get more company of devotees. He didn't need to be in Cambridge anymore. He could finish his dissertation in Oxford. But one time in Oxford, maybe Sarvabhauma won't mind my saying.
He's online. He's online, right?
Oh, he's online. Oh, please
Krishna,
forgive me, but
can you come on like with your screen on if you're able to, Sarvabhauma Prabhu? I see you. Okay. Go ahead. Where is he now?
So Sarvabhauma,
there he is.
There he is.
Dear moderator, can you show Sarva Prabhu? His name is Peter Medley. Please show him on the screen.
I see. Yes.
But I mean for everybody, because he's not on the broad screen, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. This person, this Sarvabhauma Prabhu, he's a saint. Yes, there he is. Jai Prabhu, nice to see you. Hare Krishna.
Yes,
Sarvabhauma
has a heart of gold. Has a heart of gold, and sometimes he was, as we say in America, a little spaced out in his service. And this was not appreciated by TKG. So I remember one time Goswami Maharaj said, when I finish my dissertation and finish my degree, Sarvabhauma and I are getting a divorce.
My goodness.
Didn't he say that? You were present, wasn't it?
That sounds about right.
Sounds about right, yeah.
Yeah, but he was there and he stuck it out. You know,
He did.
I came to visit and I saw how hard he was working, and it was
he was resilient. I think a lot of others would have run away because, as we know, Goswami Maharaj could be really heavy.
The range of fire, easy to get burned, very easy. Yes. But
sometimes it was embarrassing to me because, as we also know, Goswami Maharaj was a real connoisseur of prasadam, and he had high standards. Prasadam had to be first class. Everything had to be first class. And if something was not quite right in the prasadam, you'd be there with Goswami Maharaj taking prasadam, and he would call in the cook and he would give the sauce. And you'd want to say, Maharaj, it's not bad, it's okay, you know. But no, he would do that. Yeah, what more? Maybe I could read a short paragraph. This was Goswami Maharaj's part of his declaration when he made application to go back to the university, because I think it's very significant.
Yes.
Or is Giri Hari Maharaj there now? Okay.
You have a free space.
So I think this came toward the end of his sort of self-declaration for the application. He says, time is running out. I have perhaps another 20 years to serve. This was in 1995, he said this. I must seriously consider how I can best use this remaining time. Our movement is now firmly established. Hare Krishna is a household word around the world. Yet I think that we are still largely misunderstood by others. Rooted in their own cultures and traditions, they often find our ways strange. To help them understand, we must first seek to know them better, their history, their mores, their faiths, to transmit the finer aspects of Krishna consciousness. We must first educate our own members. An intelligent, learned clergy with broad educational backgrounds will be able to relate our teachings and traditions to those of other persuasions. Both will be benefited. And I go on to mention that I think Goswami Maharaj was seeing himself as wanting to become part of a learned clergy, and therefore he was taking these steps. But of course, what he wanted as a result of all this was to establish at least one institution for devotees, a Vaishnava college or university in India, not exactly in Mayapur. He wanted something maybe between Kolkata and Mayapur, but he wanted to facilitate a place for devotees so that our society would also develop a learned clergy, as he put it. Yes, I could mention one more, not direct memory, but something that Goswami Maharaj describes in some detail in his book, Servant of the Servant. And to that, more generally, maybe, I do want to say that, of course, most, if not all of you who are listening now have great appreciation of Goswami Maharaj as an author. But I want to call your attention, if you haven't already noted, the wide variety of his writing. I mentioned already the academic work that he did. There's also this book, Servant of the Servant, which is, we can say, autobiographical, but essentially meant to glorify Srila Prabhupada. There is his drama of Lord Jagannath, which was really very innovative because he was, he was, it was also a scholarly work because he was drawing from the tradition of Sanskrit drama in order to write his own drama, which then he continued with his drama about the departure of Srila Prabhupada, TKG's diary. And then again, I mentioned before his largely autobiographical book, A Hare Krishna at Southern Methodist University, in which he included several of his assignments that he had written for different classes that he had taken. And in those articles, he is often autobiographical in a very candid way and a very amazing way. Also, his book, Reason and Belief, which grew out of that same time and scholarship work at Southern Methodist University. But finally, I want to mention his novel, and actually we can say 2 novels, yes, back home. And the previous one, the one before this, he wrote The Story of Li Guangxi, Li Guangxi. And if you have not read these, I can only say 50% of your life is wasted. No,
Really?
they're really well done. The second one is co-authored with Kalachandji Prabhu, Karl Herzig, who is the younger brother of Tamal Krishna Goswami, who is a professor of English and English literature at Iowa State University, I believe it is. Both very amazing books and very inspiring. And I can say that just a few days ago, I received an email from a young new devotee in Beijing. He is just very early in the process, and he has read, I'm not sure which of the 2 he has read, but he was deeply moved by this book. And he said, basically, this has changed his life, which is exactly what Tamal Krishna Maharaj wanted. He wanted to write a book for Chinese people to be able to catch what it is to be a devotee, what it is to practice devotion, and at the same time to not ignore their own traditions of Chinese culture. And for this, Goswami Maharaj did a lot of research also. He was consequential
Yes.
in everything he did. Yes.
Yes, I remember reading or hearing that as a younger man, teenager, he already was interested in China and Chinese culture. Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yes.
Well, I'm sure you know the story of how it happened that he started, how Srila Prabhupada sent him there.
Please tell it.
He had been leading the Radha Damodar traveling party in America. They had a large number. They had 6 of these full-length buses. They had several smaller. They had more than 100 devotees. But for whatever reason, Tamal Krishna Maharaj was asked to step away from that service. And then he had a conversation with Srila Prabhupada where Goswami Maharaj was, it was unclear to him, what am I supposed to do now? He had really dedicated himself to that service, and now, in effect, you could say the service was taken away from him. So what am I supposed to do now? Maybe I should just go to China. And Srila Prabhupada he was saying it as a joke, like this was like, maybe I should just go to the moon and preach on the moon.
Yeah.
And he was saying it as a joke. Prabhupada was completely silent. And Goswami Maharaj saw that Prabhupada is now taking seriously what he just said as a joke. So Goswami Maharaj said, Prabhupada, I was just joking. And Prabhupada said, Vaishnavas don't joke. Of course, Vaishnavas do joke, but what he meant by that was when a Vaishnava speaks, there's significance to that. And so Prabhupada immediately took that as Krishna speaking through Goswami Maharaj that yes, he should go to China. And so Prabhupada said, yes, you should go to China. And that's how it all started.
Isn't there, that's the same incident, I believe, so he didn't want to go. And then Srila Prabhupada, he said, I'm not going, I'm not doing it. And then Srila Prabhupada was putting on his tilak, and Goswami Maharaj was watching, and Srila Prabhupada, his finger, he became so angry that his finger was shaking as he was putting on the tilak. and then he said, either you go to China, or I take everything away from you, and you can just sit down in Mayapur and chant.
I had heard that. I had forgotten about that. Yes.
Yeah. Yes. Actually, I think the Srila Prabhupada didn't say anything when he said it, but the next day or later the day, then Prabhupada gave him this thing, because then his, Trivikram Swami came to him, to Goswami Maharaj, and said, Srila Prabhupada wants to see you. And Trivikram Swami was preaching in the Orient. And Tamal Krishna Maharaj was thinking, oh. So, and as Maharaj was approaching him, he said, all right, I'm not going. So he already felt something was up. And then he came to the room, and then Prabhupada told him, and he said he wouldn't do it. And then, but he surrendered, as he always did. He always surrendered to Prabhupada. What a wonderful example, and what an amazing result. For those devotees who missed the session of yesterday, we started in the morning with His Grace Eka Chakradas and Her Grace Eka Janava Devidasi, and who's a Chinese lady who translated practically the whole Srimad Bhagavatam, Krishna book, Bhagavad Gita, all the small books. I mean, yes, China has opened up, and it was, again, as you were describing, Maharaj, also this amazing feat of opening up this huge communist country to Krishna consciousness. There was a lot of strategy. Goswami Maharaj was studying the culture, even the time. There was a time when he said, okay, I'm going to do it. And Srila Prabhupada was still on the planet. And Srila Prabhupada said, of some or other, they came to the conclusion, this is not the right time. So it wasn't, he was determined, but he wasn't a tank. He was also a strategist. He thought, okay, then it's not the time. But then he didn't give up on it. Later on, he did it very successfully.
Yes.
Have you seen, Maharaj, this book? Of course you have, of the descriptions of autumn, and with the Chinese artist making drawings.
Oh, yes. Yeah,
this was another idea that he taught, how to make this cultural conquest. How to bridge the cultures with the art of the Chinese and the wisdom of the Srimad Bhagavatam.
Indeed.
So refined.
I have one more very short thing to read. Quote. It's Tamal Krishna Goswami himself, if I may.
Yes.
He spoke this. This was part of his speaking at Bhaktivedanta Manor on that Vasant Panchami day, and he is speaking about his taking sannyas in Jaipur 30 years before.
Yes.
And after he received sannyas, he went immediately out preaching, and some days later he came back. And here Goswami Maharaj says, Prabhupada cleared the room, sent everybody out. Then he asked me how the preaching was. And I told him how it was in Ahmedabad. Then he did a very touching thing at the end. He got up from behind his little desk and he came over to me and took me in his arms. He pressed me very tightly. He put his head on one side of my head, then on the other side, and then the other side again. And he said, quote, now take that sannyas mantra in your heart, keep it always in your heart, and go and preach everywhere. I explain just after this that I consider this moment as the completion of the sannyas initiation that Prabhupada had initiated some days before. So that blessing Prabhupada gave, that unreserved blessing, is something I cherish thinking about, remembering. I wasn't there to see, but to remember this, what Goswami Maharaj reports to us.
Yeah, and don't you find that it's so magnanimous that he would share such a thing even?
Yes.
I mean, it's really like he was already noticing that Prabhupada is sending everybody out. That hardly ever happens. What's going to happen now? It's like it's really intimate. It was just meant for him, actually.
Yeah.
But as a Vaishnava who's like non-envious and wants to share the best he has and he's received, he actually just writes that down and he shares it. And it's very, I mean, it's inspiring you, it's inspiring me, it can inspire anybody now because it's public, kind of, it's available.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that also says a lot. That's also, I heard, I was not there yet, but the God brothers and the God sisters of Srila Tamal Krishna Maharaj, the devotees in the time of Srila Prabhupada's physical presence, many of them also appreciated that, yes, he took a lot of service, he had positions, but he was also very expert in involving others, like he did with the Radha Damodar party when he had made so many devotees. Srila Prabhupada was questioning whether he should actually continue to preach or come back to India to manage again, because it was impossible to replace him apparently at some point. So Prabhupada wanted him back, but he said that I'm preaching and it's very significant. Prabhupada, what is that preaching? You know, preaching means results. And then somehow or other, it was all orchestrated that he asked all these devotees coming in, the new bhaktas, like dozens, you know, and all of them were all fresh, shaved up, all in orange, and they all offered Prabhupada a rose and then full dandavats.
Yeah.
So, and then Prabhupada was beaming that this is results, you know, and then he allowed him to stay at Radha Damodar party.
Yeah.
So it was, he was never, he was forceful, he was powerful, he was impossible sometimes to stand, but he was always doing it for the higher good, for spreading Krishna consciousness.
Yes, and he was consequential.
Yes.
I see that Bhaktividya Purna Swami Maharaj has come.
Yes, I see it too. So I want to sincerely thank you very much, Krishna Kshetra Maharaj, Your Holiness, for also giving more of your time, which you didn't plan to when you were scheduled for like half hour ago. So we really appreciate, all of us appreciate your extra time and your very meaningful readings also. And for those of you who haven't seen it, I posted in the chat the link to that lecture that Maharaj is referring to, as it is posted on the TKG TM website.
Very nice.
Yeah, so the link is in the chat. If you're curious now, click on it and you can hear the whole presentation. So that's good.
Well, my thanks to you, Rati Manjari Mataji, and to all the devotees. Thank you, Mataji, for your kind encouragement to keep speaking.
Oh, I have more. I want more, but anyway, we have to stick to the schedule and respect everybody. Perhaps another time you can come and speak more, as I'm sure you have much more. And you look also, I like how you draw in different written things. I never heard of this application of Maharaj to SMU. Is that a public document? Is that somewhere, or is that in your private?
I don't know. I don't even remember how I got the portion which I incorporated in my article. That's some years ago.
Okay.
we
Where
could.
can we get that article? Can we read it? Is it public or?
It's in the Journal of Vaishnav Studies,
Yeah.
volume 11, number 2, spring 2003.
Is it digital also?
I have an unofficial digital copy.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if I'm allowed to share it, but
How would we find out?
well, Satyaraj Prabhu, he is the editor of the journal, so I think he would be the person to ask.
All right, I'm writing it down. I hope to get to it soon. Thank you so much. And
Thank you.
please accept our humble obeisances.
Thank you. Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj ki jai,
Jai.
Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda ki jai.
Jai.
Krishna.
Gaur Premanande, Haribol.
Hari
Jai. Thank you. Have a wonderful weekend and stay around if you can, Maharaj.
Thank you,
Lovely.
thank you.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hari.
Okay, wow. The nectar is flowing. Oh. So we have the apologies of His Holiness Giridhari Swami, who had some urgent things to deal with, who couldn't wait. So he wasn't able to log in, and he apologizes for that. And now we have our next speaker who has arrived. I have been told it is His Holiness Bhaktividya Purna Maharaj from Mayapur Dham. And before we will hear from him, I'd like to say a few words. His biography, which I received, is the shortest of all. That's interesting. He says, or at least somebody said about him, His Holiness Bhaktividya Purna Swami comes from a Jewish American background. He had spent some time in Israel before taking shelter of Srila Prabhupada. He's a person of high integrity and who had traveled a long way to find a spiritual framework in which he could live happily. He now prepares courses in religious topics together with philosophy in Mayapur. He's the principal of Sri Rupanuga Paramartika Vidyapith in ISKCON Mayapur. He trains the Gurukul kids to be perfect Vaishnavas. He especially trains them in conducting Vedic yagyas. He preaches extensively in various parts of the world and has his main base in Mayapur. And those of us who've been there, which I hope everybody, or if not, you've wasted the other 50% of your life, you should go soon. Well, now is not a good advice, Rati. No, sorry, not now. After the COVID, please make a plan to go to Mayapur Dham, and then you can meet these Gurukulish shining boys and see how wonderfully they're conducting the yagyas, and then you know who taught him. But where is he? I don't see him. Maharaj, are you online?
And as far as I know,
here he is. Jai, Hare Krishna. Please accept my humble obeisances. Hare Krishna, nice to see you. Please enlighten us about His Holiness Tamal Krishna Goswami.
Okay, so nothing as formal as maybe as previously been presented.
As
But
you
yes.
As you like.
Basically, it's just some of the qualities that Maharaj you would see. That it was very, very focused, and that ability to focus very nicely then allowed him to, excel in so many different areas, because it wasn't just any one area. It's just wherever he would put his attention, then in that situation, then you would see it would develop.
Yeah.
As before, these discussions were there about how, his preaching, his different things, his management. So in that focus, it would be, he would contemplate a lot, he would think a lot. And he would, analyze the situation, what's the best thing to do. and come up with the various options. And because he would think so much, the options that he would come up with would be many. And many times he would be, would be very comfortable to ask, his various associates and godbrothers and that what their opinion was on it, and just see the different angles that might come up. Because sometimes, even though he thinks so much, there might be a different angle he might not have thought of. So where I noticed how much he would think about these things is one time when he was in Mayapur and he had something he was thinking about. And he called me to his room and he asks, what would you think of this? And so then I made a, short statement like that. And then he sat for a moment and he was nodding his head and he was going, option D. In other words, how many there were, but he had his and that was option D. And I said, and why D? Why? I mean, he didn't say D. Why did you choose? Why are you thinking this? And then you want to know why, what was the background and all that, in case there was something that he missed when he was thinking about option D, and why you thought that was the best and all that. But it would always be is that it's very rare that you would ever come up with something he didn't already think of. It was just a matter of, okay, well now out of all these that could possibly be done, which one would be the best? Another, an aspect of his focus, then he got into, to eating, means not eating, meaning in the way of appreciating, food and all that, appreciating the prasad and these kind of, things, because he was into the cultural aspects. Because I think, earlier, probably he wasn't focused as much on it. Because then his exposure, I think, earlier in the 70s, then would just be whatever came along, whatever somebody could cook, that was a good thing. And if they couldn't cook, then, there was always, whatever it is, Planters peanuts and a bar of cream cheese or whatever it is that happened.
Yeah.
So then he started preaching in Fiji, and from that, then he had come in contact with kind of the Gujarati cooking, and they had a bit of a cuisine. And so he had started to appreciate that. And so when he came to Vrindavan during those last days of Srila Prabhupada, so Prabhupada's servants were there, and he came as one of the servants. And so I was assisting the servants. I wasn't Prabhupada's servant. I was just I was like you'd say the servant to the servants. So Tamal Krishna Maharaj, Bhakti Chora Maharaj, at that time Bhavananda Maharaj was there, Shatadanya Maharaj, I can't remember who else. At different times there were different people there. So I would, take care of the room and do everything like that, and I'd cook for them. Bhakti Chora Maharaj would cook for Prabhupada, and I'd cook for them. So then one time he came, I think that what I remember, the first time he came for lunch when I cooked, then Bhavananda Prabhu was already sitting and eating. And Bhavananda Prabhu eats very quickly. So he had already, kind of moved down. In Bengali cooking, there's a very specific order with so many preparations. You don't just eat anything. It's not like North Indian, you just take this, that, and all that. It has a very specific order. So then Bhavananda Prabhu was already eating things that are later in the meal. And, he sat down and he saw what he was eating, and I gave him something else. And he says, I want that. And I says, no, this is what you're supposed to eat. And it was kind of like one of those, you're telling me how to eat,
Yeah.
It was one of those very subtle kind of like, do you know who I am?
Yeah.
Like that kind of thing. And then he turns to he didn't say anything to me. He just looked at me. And he turned to Bhavananda Prabhu and he says, who's this guy? He's telling me how to eat. And Bhavananda Prabhu said, no, he's supposed to tell you how to eat. He cooked, he's serving, he knows what the order is of the preparations. And as soon as he heard that, then he turned to me and goes, oh, okay, so what should I eat first? Immediately he just accepted and like that. And then from then on, you could always see as he understood that there was orders and cuisines and everything. So he would get, when he was in Mayapur, I think also when he was in Vrindavan, I can't remember his name. He was a Bengali boy from Calcutta. Yeah, Gopal.
Sajidullah?
No. There were 3 brothers, Bengali brothers from Calcutta.
Hmm.
And so he came and was cooking for him. I think that devotee is still in Vrindavan. And so he cooked very, very nicely. And so he liked to, whenever he was, he would, if there was nothing else happening, he would eat him, they'd cook and he'd eat. But he always preferred to invite devotees, because Rupa Goswami's aspect of that, that bhunkte bhojayate, that you sit and eat with devotees and everything like that. So he appreciated that very much. And he'd sit and talk, you had to have light conversation. You can't have meetings and stuff, because that's the etiquette, during when you're eating is light conversation, pleasant. And this and that, and discuss about what was cooked and what you thought and how this went with that. And it was always a very, very pleasant time. Then afterwards, you would sit and, after you'd eat and wash, then you sit and discuss a little bit, or you take a nap, so it was always a very pleasant. It was, the cultural aspect, it was very important. It wasn't just, even though you could probably basically say, as far as managers went, that probably, from what I saw, and what Prabhupada had mentioned, him and Bhavananda Prabhu, they were the best managers in the movement. He was the example of lazy intelligent. Bhavananda Maharaj was active intelligent. And so, when it came to these things, so it wasn't that, he was so good that he didn't have to spend all day doing that. He could spend his time for management and organization, and then after that he could spend that just sitting with God brothers, sitting with others, doing things. Or he would have kirtans in his room a lot, invite so many devotees. They'd have very wonderful kirtans. So the aspect of the sadhana, the personal development, all these things are very important. And at the same time, he still maintained, that he was the best manager. So, that was very, very, important aspect that sometimes gets overlooked in today's trying to be professional world, where, somehow or another management takes a prominence in our lives over, instead of it being an assistant, it becomes kind of like an identity. And so for him, it was an identity. He was a devotee. But this was what he was good at. He could organize devotees, he could make things happen. He could, he big structures he could run and everything like that. So it was very, very nice. So he was always and he liked, being around devotees. He liked being inspired by devotees, doing things like in Kartik. One time he was mentioning to me about, it's very inspiring when devotees make a commitment to do something. It's like, I think he gave an example, like Burijan Prabhu and they decided to do Govardhan Parikram, but not just the regular going around. That, we'd all do. They did Dandabat Parikram, so that'll take, I don't know, like weeks or something, and that, and, so someone else, getting very serious about chanting the japa or studying a particular book, and then, being able to discuss that with devotees. So he very much appreciated that the personal development that someone would have, that personal development, and then that would then be, the power behind their preaching, because probably, purity is the force.
Nice. Yeah.
So he very much appreciated that. So,
Hi.
Yeah, those are the things that come to my mind,
Beautiful.
So.
I'm scribbling along. Very nice.
Okay.
I like how you put all these different aspects that we have known or heard about, how you put it all together in a full package of his personality, and how he was able to focus nicely. Yeah, that's actually what it was. Beautiful. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, I know you have way more, I know, but you said you would talk for about 15 minutes, and those are over. And Lokanath Swami is here. So I think we have to wind up now. I really want to thank you so much for giving your perspectives, Maharaj. And I hope another time maybe we can, host you again. I know I have a picture of you and the Maharaj, Tamal Krishna Maharaj, and I think it's Giriraj Maharaj in the cave.
Yes. I think Vatsasura's cave or Vyomasura's cave.
Vyomasura's cave. Giriraj Maharaj yesterday said that he has this picture on his desk and he looks at it so often. So, I mean, you are there too. So I'm sure, and you went on these parikrams. So there must have been so many little things, which I don't want to lift the lid now because we don't have time. But yeah, such things. Those would be invaluable for us all to hear. All right, so thank you so much. We wish you all success with your continued devotional service in the Dham and beyond. And yeah, please accept our humble obeisances. Hare Krishna. Hare Bol. Please stay on if you have time, and see you again. Hare Krishna.
Okay, thank you.
Jai Shri Prabhupada. All right, so now it's like Sadhu Sangha today. I don't know what to say anymore about the next speaker because he's so illustrious. It's His Holiness Lokanath Swami. Please bring him on if you can, and I'll try to extract some essentials from his biography, which is huge, long. By the way, Bhaktividya Purna, thanks for the short bio, which gave me immediate relief, 4 lines. But this Lokanath Maharaj, he has an enormous history of devotional service. I'll try to, where is he? Can we see him already? I can't on the screens. Yes, Hare Krishna Maharaj. Please accept our humble obeisances. Jai Rukmini Panduranga. Jai Wonderful to see you, Maharaj. You are here as well. Wonderful. Okay, so before we give Maharaj the floor, I'd like to say some things of his accomplishments in his life. Okay, Mother Saraswati, please help me. It's such a long list. I even forgot where it is. Yeah.
Make it short.
Okay.
Make it brief. Or no, there's no need also to.
No, okay, just shortly. So Maharaj was born in Aravad in Maharashtra. And he was born Raghunath Patil. Raghunath, nice name. And so he always wanted to help other people and to serve. And he was looking and for the best way to do that. Because he studied in Mumbai, he came to crossed paths with this beautiful Pannal program that was organized at Cross Maiden and in 1971. So we had the opportunity to hear from Srila Prabhupada directly and see all the devotees. And he got so inspired that he decided to join. And since actually his parents didn't like it very much, or his family, but later on he made good with them because he came back to his village and he established a beautiful ISKCON temple there. So he made his whole village Krishna conscious, or at least gave them the opportunity to become that. Well, let me just say what my impression of you, Maharaj, which is very limited, so it will be shorter, but it's very profound. I saw you leading Padayatra in Holland many years ago. It's my base. And I know that you have done that throughout so many countries in the world. And you've inspired hundreds and hundreds, thousands maybe of devotees to do the same. The walking journey, just simple Krishna consciousness, bringing it to everybody that we meet. And now you are also overseeing the World Holy Name ministry, something. So you're always inspiring the chanting of Hare Krishna. And yeah, that's the most glorious thing. Of course, you're also a spiritual master of many devotees. And that way also you're inspiring the spreading of Krishna consciousness. So yeah, we want to hear what you on how he's leaving. That was too much already. No, just joking. Excuse me. Jai Rukmini Panduranga, so beautiful, the deities. Hare Krishna. So Maharaj, please tell us, what would you like to share with us about His Holiness Tamal Krishna Goswami?
How much time?
How much time? Good question. I think that you are the final person today. Let's see. Hare Krishna. Actually, at least half an hour, as far as I understand. So go ahead. We'll know more as it goes along.
Om Adnyana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Vansha Kalpatarubhyasya. This is my prayer at the lotus feet of Tamal Krishna Maharaj. Vansha Kalpatarubhyasya. Kripa Sindhu Bhevacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. And prayers unto the feet of all the assembled and not assembled devotees also. And I have come up with yet another prayer. It's not a new. I have done some amendment. Could I see the devotees also? I'm seeing myself. I don't see. Could you show me the devotees?
Yes, please, if you are able to, if you are decent, please turn on your videos so Maharaj can have your association and
Spread them on the screen here instead of just few more. Anyway, if you're able to do that, and I get an audience, and I'm addressing them and not addressing the sky or air. Anyway.
Let's just do that properly. School of Bhakti, the moderators, can you give Maharaj the full view or tell him how to get that so that he can speak to the devotees as he likes? Can we give him that, or what should he do?
Maharaj, in the view, I think you just have to switch from speaker to gallery.
Gallery view.
I have to do that, or you?
You can do that, Maharaj. It's up on the top right, I think. Is
Yeah.
that possible? Yeah.
Yes.
Where all the little squares are?
Yeah, I click there. I'm not a technical person.
That's all right. It's not so difficult. I'm neither. Does it work? Do you get everybody's little postal stamp face?
Speaker view, gallery view.
Gallery.
Yes, Maharaj.
Yeah. Try
Huh?
clicking.
All right.
You see
Thank
that?
you.
Better?
Now I'm surrounded by
Right. Haribo.
devotees, so
Thank you. Okay.
now I have audience.
Haribo.
Yes, I was saying earlier that this was after Tamal Krishna Maharaj's departure. There were those memorial ceremonies or remembrances were getting organized in Mayapur, and especially at Govardhan, where Maharaj's ashram and his Pushpa Samadhi was. During that time, I had this thought, which I'm going to share it again. Our thought, or the prayer, originally is prayer of Rupa Goswami, or prayer at the feet of Rupa Goswami. So this is how it goes. It may be some concoction what I am doing or the amendment I have done. Srila Prabhupada Manobhishtam Sthapitam Ena Bhutale Swayam Tamal Krishna Kada Mahyam Dadati Padantikam. I think as I wasn't sure whether I should again repeat this prayer, which I did some amendment to the original prayer. But then I heard Giriraj Maharaj just a little while ago, he's saying Tamal Krishna Maharaj had access to mind of Srila Prabhupada, or he would read Prabhupada's mind, on Prabhupada's mind, and then he would execute the will of Prabhupada and this and that. So this is what, my thought is that Tamal Krishna Maharaj, Prabhupada Manobhishtam, whatever is on the mind of Prabhupada, Tamal Krishna Maharaj had access to that. He was such a confidential associate of Srila Prabhupada from very inner circle, you know, like even in case of Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he had a Rai Ramanand and Swarup Damodar, you know, associating and around him, and likewise in Vrindavan, he had a Rupa Goswami. So I think Tamal Krishna Maharaj had that kind of relationship or position in relationship with Srila Prabhupada. Very, very close, from close circles he associated and assisted Srila Prabhupada. He always liked to be number one, and in this regard also I would say he became kind of number one, being very close, confidential associate and servant of Srila Prabhupada, servant of the servant. He wrote that book, Servant of the Servant. And as you read through, I strongly recommend, here it goes. You should, those who have not read, please read this book, Servant of the Servant. By reading that, you will remember Tamal Krishna Maharaj, and he will remind you of Srila Prabhupada also, two in one. As you remember Tamal Krishna Maharaj, you remember Srila Prabhupada. So that's how they close. They were close to each other. So I had lots of association. Of course, we were brothers. We were Prabhupada's family. So how could we not be together? So for so many years, we were from beginning with 71, 72 till all the way till Maharaj's departure for Lord's abode. We were always together around here, there, and everywhere. Really. So I'm very fortunate and thankful to Srila Prabhupada for giving me God brother like Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj. Really. So when I joined Hare Krishna movement in 71, 72, finally joined. Tamal Krishna Maharaj was my GBC in Bombay, governing body commissioner of Bombay, and so we were part of the citizens of his empire, the Bombay Empire and Juhu Empire. And anyway, I should, just make points and not make it stretched and long. Yeah, so one time, now Tamal Krishna Maharaj is known for being heavy and strong and strict. This is one of his the characteristic is known for that. Oh, so one morning I was a bit late getting up, or maybe there was a long queue for bathroom, so I was late coming to Mangal Arati. So I got ready and I quickly put my dhoti as a lungi around, did not put my brahmachari like dhoti, and I ran to the temple, Radha Ras Bihari temple, and I offered my obeisances. And as I was getting up, guess what was happening? next to me, Tamal Krishna Maharaj stood. And as soon as I was all the way up, I said, "What's up, Maharaj?" I did not ask him, but he said, "Go back. Lungi, no more lungi. Change this." And he stood there till I offered my obeisances again and departed. Really. And then I never put lungi, never, ever again. Only after I took sannyas. Now, anyway, I shouldn't say this, but what to say? I was only 1 year or so in the movement, and my marriage was arranged by the temple president with a devotee, Prabhupada disciple. But it was unsuccessful. The girl's parents came and she was kidnapped. And I was thinking, oh, why this bad thing happened to a good person like me? And I was down and morose. And Tamal Krishna Maharaj had taken note of this. So then I had gone to see Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj, counseling, taking his advice, taking inspiration from me. And we had a long talk, but the gist was, the conclusion was, Maharaj said, "Marry Krishna." What does that mean? Marry Krishna. Take sannyas. In other words, the Tamal Krishna Maharaj was in the sannyas mood. He had just now gone to Jaipur with Srila Prabhupada, and Srila Prabhupada had given him sannyas in Jaipur at Radha Govind temple, and he had returned, so he was in that mood. He had come out of the family life and taken sannyas. He said, "But marry Krishna." So I thank Maharaj for that advice, that instruction, I would say. And that led to me approaching Srila Prabhupada for sannyas, and then me taking sannyas. So Tamal Krishna Maharaj changed things around for me. Well, as Tamal Krishna Maharaj used to be always around Prabhupada in Mumbai, and especially later on when he became Srila Prabhupada's servant, assistant. Then whenever I would come to Srila Prabhupada's quarter, Tamal Krishna Maharaj would say, "Prabhupada, Lokanath Swami is here. You would like to hear Kirtan?" And so he would propose, and I would end up doing Kirtan for Srila Prabhupada's pleasure. And now Srila Prabhupada was in Vrindavan. This is 77 October, November. And Prabhupada wanted to get his Dr. Ghosh, is his old friend doctor from Prayag. And Srila Prabhupada thought of me going there. And then Srila Prabhupada asked Tamal Krishna Maharaj, make all the arrangements so that he give him a fare to fly to Prayag and get my doctor immediately or quickly. So, and Tamal Krishna Maharaj followed all the advice of Srila Prabhupada and made all the arrangements for me to go get the doctor for Srila Prabhupada. Then during those final days, Srila Prabhupada wanted to go on a parikrama. Prabhupada was feeling restless, lying on the bed, and he wanted to leave the world while preaching, fighting. Preaching is fighting. So he wanted to get out there, especially so there were long discussion I had with Srila Prabhupada and others also. And Prabhupada had expressed the desire that I arranged bullock cart for Srila Prabhupada to go on parikrama. And Tamal Krishna Maharaj went along with that thought and desire of Srila Prabhupada. And I was now sent to Mathura to get a bullock cart, which I had arranged, and bullock cart was now waiting. Tamal Krishna Maharaj wrote that final days or something, that name of the book.
Yeah, fine. Oh,
Final day, what's the name? Yeah, that's right. I can't read. Yeah, so Maharaj has included that chapter in his book, Final Day. I think that's the title of the book. Although initially Tamal Krishna Maharaj was going along and me arranging bullock cart and all that was happening, but Tamal Krishna Maharaj, from within himself, he was not convinced that this was the best idea, that take Prabhupada on a bullock cart, and he was considering the health of Srila Prabhupada. And then a lot of discussion. It's a long drawn event. It was spread over few days, few nights. This was going on. Bullock cart, no bullock cart, travel, no travel. So Tamal Krishna Maharaj and Bhaktacharya Maharaj and Bhavanand Maharaj and a few Maharajas headed by Tamal Krishna Maharaj approached Srila Prabhupada and appealed not to go, and Krishnadas Babaji Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada's god brother, also was involved in this dialogue, this discussion, and making decision. And finally, Srila Prabhupada agreed, yes, I will not go on a bullock cart traveling. And so that time, Srila Prabhupada had said to Krishnadas Babaji Maharaj, see how much they love me, see how much they love me. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. And it means how much Tamal Krishna Maharaj loved him and others, but especially Tamal Krishna Maharaj. So Srila Prabhupada loved Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj, and and that TKG diary that Maharaj maintained. There's another thing, like Raghunath Das Goswami, another associate of Gauranga Mahaprabhu, he was keeping diary, Karcha, it's called Karcha, writing every day's events, which became very helpful in writing Chaitanya Charitamrita, the pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So likewise, like Raghunath Das Goswami, Tamal Krishna Maharaj also, as I mentioned earlier, other names, Surup Damodar and the Ramanand Rai, Rupa Goswami, Raghunath Das Goswami was writing. So likewise, Tamal Krishna Maharaj also was writing. And that became famous as TKG Diary, K Jai. From a close proximity as he was watching and taking notes of different events and different thoughts of Srila Prabhupada. And this book, I wanted to say this at some point, all the books of Tamal Krishna Maharaj especially this TKG diary of Tamal Krishna Maharaj, of TKG. TKG's diary should be translated in all possible languages. I don't know in how many languages. I don't even know whether it is translated in Hindi, which is language of India. So please, I appeal to his disciples, or those who are maintaining his archives and in charge of publications, translate this book. All books, especially this TKG diary, should be translated in all possible languages, so that we will get to know Tamal Krishna Maharaj, as well as we'll get to know Srila Prabhupada through the eyes of Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj. Like a Shastra Chakshusha, this is a Shastra compiled by the closest associate of Srila Prabhupada, who was always around Prabhupada. So get this translated. So then, well, this idea of bullock cart was dropped, but Prabhupada's desire of traveling, we could not stop. And then Prabhupada wanted to travel with the buses. And then everyone, including Tamal Krishna Maharaj, welcomed this idea of traveling with the buses, welcome. Then could we go with you, Prabhupada? Could we go? And Prabhupada, yes, you could go, you could go. Tamal Krishna Maharaj, could I go? Of course, he for sure he was going to travel with Srila Prabhupada. Anyway, it's a long story again. Very sweet dialogue that took place between Prabhupada and disciples who were around him that time. So finally, travels with Prabhupada on the buses was finalized. And then it was Tamal Krishna Maharaj and myself, along with few others. We were we got into action, and we're preparing for Prabhupada's travels in the buses all over India. Prabhupada wanted to go on Tirtha Yatras. We had a big map of India, and we were planning where to get the buses, who would be the driver, and this and the itinerary. And as we're in the middle of all this plan, myself, Tamal Krishna Maharaj, and others were making, then that the worst day of our life was there, and Prabhupada left us behind, and really so again, as Tamal Krishna Maharaj was he was sharing Prabhupada in the form of Srila Prabhupada's personal items, clothing, this, that. And Tamal Krishna Maharaj was very kind to give me one of Srila Prabhupada's kurta, which Srila Prabhupada had been wearing during his last days, which has become my treasure, big treasure, that Tamal Krishna handed that to me, Prabhupada's kurta. And for that also I'm very grateful to Tamal Krishna Maharaj. As we heard from Bhaktividya Purna Maharaj about his Bhunte Bhojayate Chaiva. And I had experience of, especially in Vrindavan, Tamal Krishna Maharaj stayed at where Bhagatji used to stay, not far from Krishna Balaram temple. That was Tamal Krishna Maharaj's quarter. And especially during Kartik, month of Kartik, he used to invite a batch of his god brothers, batch after batch after batch. And So I used to be very much on that batch, part of his list. And I had honor of honoring Prasadam with him. And used to be a treat. Tamal Krishna Maharaj, he was expert in honoring Prasadam. And he was very fond of Prasad. And he had everything, like a perfection attained. Which item goes first, and then what next, and what next, and what next. And he would personally make the menus, and he used to be a Gujarati thali, Gujarati bhojan was his favorite bhojan. Dokla and curry, and so as he liked, we also liked to enjoy prasadam with him, and that was, of course, a opportunity for us to Guhyama Khiti Prachati, some light talk, and during prasadam, and then after prasad, well, he would not talk to us after prasad. I noticed that he would take a little nap, and you take nap for some 11 minutes or something like that. I actually surprised, say, how could he? I could never manage nap like that, but he used to go and have a little break, some nap, and he used to up, and then he would sit down and have a talk with us, friendly talk. So those were the days we experienced a lot of Priti Lakshan, his affection for his god brothers, god sisters, and devotees in general. Of course, during Prabhupada days, we only had a god brothers, god sisters. You all folks, most of you came later on, but we had only god brothers and god sisters. So he had affection for, and of course he had affection for all of you, and second generation also, which you have experience of all that. And one time he invited me. I know my time is, I have a little more time. I have a few more minutes.
Oh, yes.
Okay. Yeah, we, during Srila Prabhupada's centennial days, like early and mid 90s, I was organizing Padayatras. I wanted to organize Padayatra in 100 countries. And Tamal Krishna Maharaj invited me to one of the countries where he was a GBC, and that was Philippines. And
Yes.
I was his.
I was there. I know that.
You
Yeah.
were there?
I was there. Yes. I was traveling with Maharaj, with my husband. And yeah, I took so many pictures. I saw you were there, Giridhari Maharaj, and going on the carts, throwing the bags of the popcorn.
Now I couldn't believe that you were there, because I could never forget. The food for life was a popcorn.
Yeah.
We had thousands of bags and a full van or some backup.
Yeah.
And like in Bengal, they fight for khichdi. These Filipinos, whatever you say, they were fighting for those bags. So we were out together with Tamal Krishna Maharaj and Giridhari Maharaj and others, and I thoroughly enjoyed my visit of Philippines and my association with Tamal Krishna Maharaj and Padayatra with Tamal Krishna Maharaj in Philippines, and especially kirtans and prasad distribution was an amazing thing that happened
And Maharaj was throwing the bags he was handing them through the gates. He was throwing them onto the balconies. He was completely like a sports player. He was throwing them everywhere into it.
Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj ki. And then as we were doing, Navadip Mandal Parikrama, and then at one point we got all the GBCs to join our parikramas, Navadip Mandal Parikrama, and again Tamal Krishna Maharaj very gladly jumped into action, and he was in the forefront of those Navadip Mandal Parikramas and staying overnight, and he had his tent. And he would pitch the tent and every night someplace and staying overnight. And we had a great time together with, of course, the thousands of devotees, hundreds of Prabhupada disciples, and dozens of GBCs and sannyasis. And Tamal Krishna Maharaj was very much there. Yeah, what I remember also is for several years, Tamal Krishna Maharaj would bring a gift from China Mission, he would say, or from Hong Kong, from Taiwan. And there was a very special hat. It was a cloth with some wire, so this would stay, stiff and firm. And he would bring thousands of those hats. And he would get me make announcement. You have to tell them that these hats are a gift. The hats have been sponsored by the China Mission or the Hong Kong Mission. And I would announce, and then devotees would fight to get one of those hats. And the whole parikrama was, like a decoration on the head. Thousands of devotees walking with this Chinese or very nice hats and getting protection from the sun. So that was Tamal Krishna Maharaj also was serving the parikrama devotees. Hari. Well, then in the final year, and finally, some years Tamal Krishna Maharaj missed Mayapur festivals and Mayapur meetings as he was busy with his studies. But then he started coming again, and then the last year, this was his last year, he came. And what he was doing this time was he was organizing, like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to organize this all-night kirtans, nocturnal kirtans at Srivas Angan. And Tamal Krishna Maharaj was organizing not exactly all night long, but quite late into the night. Now he had the big quarter in his in Kanch building, and that is to be packed and overflowing. When you would get all the senior devotees, junior devotees, everyone coming, and kirtan and chanting and dancing, and he did that night after night after night after night. And that became quite, I would say, the kirtan melas, which are now going on around within ISKCON. So it was kind of the kirtans organized by Tamal Krishna Maharaj in Mayapur during that festival was like a springboard, gave a boost to the kirtans or kirtan melas, kirtan parties. And you would go every day to Ganga Snan, where I have a room in Kanch building at the bottom, and it is the ground floor. And I would notice Maharaj going to Ganga Snan every single day. He would go for taking bath in Ganga. And finally, as he was leaving Mayapur that day, his last obeisances were at the feet of Garud Dev, the Mayapur temple, Radha Madhava temple courtyard. There's a very special Garud. So Maharaj offers his obeisances, and as he's leaving, but he was not allowed to step outside Gauramandal Bhumi. Before he would cross, he was stopped. And I would say he just entered the pastimes of Gauranga or Radha Madhav and joined Srila Prabhupada right there, which was before crossing the borders of Navadip Mandal, Gaur Mandal. And Hari Hari. So such a Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj, Yanilo Premadhan, Karuna Prachur, Kotha Gela, Tamal Krishna Thakur. So we could only, yeah, you're only showing a photograph. That's nice, thank you. So he hasn't gone, he's also here. We are trying to. So now one thing was, I just want to say this, that one time was when Prabhupada departed, he left us behind, or left me behind. And the kind of separation I felt, and kind of vacuum that was kind of created, I felt when Prabhupada had departed. So one more time I felt, I mean, others have also departed, left, and certainly I missed them. I felt some emptiness or vacancy. But especially Tamal Krishna Maharaj's departure was yet another experience for me. Once Prabhupada departed, and the next when Tamal Krishna Maharaj departed. So I had a very special bond with him, which cannot be seen or shown, could be experienced, being subtle and spiritual. So dearly, I miss Krishna Maharaj, and so thank you for opportunity to talk to you, share my some memories, and as we remember Tamal Krishna Maharaj, then our empty hearts again become full, and we feel close proximity of our departed God brothers, God sisters, devotees, and of course Tamal Krishna Maharaj. Also, especially Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj. So,
Thank you. Thank you, Lokanath Maharaj, for opening your heart and sharing some of your love for His Holiness Tamal Krishna Goswami. It's very palpable. Thank you very much. Very beautiful. I was just wondering if you like to say something, if you feel that, like, if he would, what would Maharaj want us to do? Do you have some, like, how would he want us to be? And us is a big group. Everyone's different. But are there some things maybe that, if you like to say, what you take from your relationship with him, what you try to be, or how you try to live, or what you try to share with others?
You're asking me, or I'm not
Yeah.
sure.
I'm asking you, but you don't have to respond if you like.
Well, I said it. I think you could read it or read in between the lines. Maybe you could ask one of them what they understood or what they felt or what they learned or what are the takeaways from what I said. Maybe I would like to maybe hear a response like that.
Okay, that's a good idea. All right.
You or some of you could say something.
Yeah. Okay. So, well, what I took away is that yeah, you are very poetically almost describing the different pastimes that you were in, and you were mentioning, expressing how close Srila Prabhupada and Srila Tamal Krishna Maharaj were, and you've seen that and felt that so many times. So you feel that he's one of the most intimate associates of Srila Prabhupada. He knew his mind, and he was, yeah, that's, you thank him for his advice, that he encouraged you to take sannyas and get out of that state, but to go forward and to sannyas ashram, and you were able to do that so beautifully for the rest of your life, which is amazing. And then you also are very grateful that he gave you Srila Prabhupada's kurta. Just hop, skipping, and jumping. But I mean, these things are very meaningful. And I also liked how you said that we were brothers. Of course we would be together. We're Prabhupada's family. Like, that sounded very magnanimous to me, very broad-minded. That's a beautiful way to feel. And yeah. Any other devotees? What did you hear, or what did you take from Maharaj's presentation, if I can call it that? Now, I don't know so much about muting and unmuting. School of Bhakti, Dhruva Prabhu, if there's any devotee who likes to share and give Maharaj back some of his prasad that we took from his talk, then go ahead.
Hare Krishna, yes. So I've allowed participants the ability to unmute themselves. So whoever wants to say something can say something.
Yeah, one by one.
Please.
Yeah, Sarvabhauma, with screen, please. Yeah. Can you lower it a little bit? That's the only, yeah.
Maharaj said that we should translate TKG's diary into Hindi. That's a nice practical instruction and advice. That's all I wanted to say.
Actually, he said in all the languages of the world, which is a great idea. I'm happy to say that this particular copy is actually in my mother tongue. It's in Dutch, believe it or not. This is such a small country. But my godbrother Dayani Type took it upon himself to actually translate this in Dutch. So we have it. I don't know how many copies we have, but it's translated. So you can do it too, world. Yes, very nice. Thank you, Sarvabhauma. Anything else you'd like to feedback? That's it.
Can I speak?
Yes, Shamalangi. Hare Krishna. No,
Hare
that's
Krishna.
what's your name?
Sri Radhika Devidasi
Great
from
name.
Vrindavan.
Hare Krishna. Jai.
Hare Krishna.
What would you like to share?
Yeah, Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj is my first guru in ISKCON. I couldn't get, he passed away, of course, in before I could have any formal relationship, but he declared that he was my guru. So now from His Holiness Lokanath Swami Maharaj's talk, one thing that I mean, of course, a lot of things strike us, but something that touched my heart was he offered obeisances to Garuda before leaving. And I was just thinking how Garuda did not let him leave the Mayapur Dham. Rather, Garuda picked him onto his back and take him back to Godhead. That's something which I felt touched from Mara's speech.
Right. Very nice. Yes. Actually, I was wondering about this. Thank you, Sri Radhika. Thank you very much. I was wondering, Lokanath Swami Maharaj, if you'd like to comment, what is this offering obeisances to Garuda? I know also in Willow House in Cambridge, Tamal Krishna Maharaj also had this gigantic statue, very beautiful, of Garuda. Could you say a few words about this? What is Garuda to us as Vaishnavas, and especially maybe to Tamal Krishna Maharaj?
Yeah, okay. In that context, I could say, not in general, that well, the Garuda is sent on a special mission sometimes to bring his devotees, carry his devotees. Again, case of Gajendra Moksha, Gajendra. For that time, Lord personally also had come. And it is said that he asked Gajendra, of course, he was no more in the body of elephant, but his original Swarupan. Okay, he takes it in the back, and Lord and Gajendra, they rode back to the Lord's abode. So I had taken note of this. I don't know whether others are thinking, they maybe had seen or Tamal Krishna Maharaj offering obeisance, but for me, I was making that connection that some preparation was going on here. Even, as I said, he's doing kirtan and lots of kirtans. He's going and regularly taking bath in Ganga. And then part of that is also on the way out offering obeisance to Garuda. So they are like some kind of preparation. Maybe he wasn't preparing, but maybe Lord was preparing for him to get ready, do this thing, do this, do that. And on the way, there's also Garud. And they could jump back on the back of Garud and let's go home, let's go back. I had been making these connections.
Sounds very exciting, actually. Yeah, wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much. Great. So any other devotee would like to share something? Maybe Krishna Loka, what about you? You've been hearing so patiently. Yeah, I see you. Oh, wait, just a second. There's Shyamalami. She was first. Okay, what would you like to share, Mataji? Nice to see you.
Hare Krishna, please accept humble obeisances. Jai Shri Prabhupada. So I like Guru Maharaj, His Holiness Lokanath Swami Maharaj. What I take away was similar to what Sri Radhika also said about Mayapur Dham. So I personally felt that Maharaj, His Holiness Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj was very attached to Mayapur Dham. So, like he couldn't leave Gaur Mandal as he was on his way back home, back to Godhead. And I personally felt that, I because recently we just had the online Navdeep Mandal Parikrama as well. And I've just done once the Navdeep Mandal Parikrama, but I go more often to Vrindavan. So I find myself that after listening to Maharaj, that I want to be more attached to Mayapur and get connected more, know more about Mayapur Dham, like the Gaur Mandal. Like we are just doing the Navdeep Mandal Parikrama, but there's more in Gaur Mandal itself. So I don't know much about it. And then I remember Bhaktivinod Thakur's prediction that the fair skin will come and they will sing Jai Sachinandan, Jai Sachin. So I'm born and brought up in India, but I feel now that, I also must visit Mayapur more often and like feeling through Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj, feeling like more attachment. And Mataji, one more thing I would like to mention that, His Holiness Lokanath Swami Maharaj's Bhu Vaikuntha book. So just yesterday I read in that that how Tukaram also, how he used to, like, whoever comes to take darshan and of Lord Vitthal in Pandharpur Dham, they, hug Garuda, the Garuda's thumb. And, the devotees, they pray. This is what I read in Guru Maharaj's, His Holiness Lokanath Swami Maharaj's book, that, they would pray that after leaving their body, oh Garuda, please come and take us back to Vaikuntha. So I just remembered that. I just thought I'll share that as well.
Interesting. Beautiful. Very nice. Thank you, Shamalangi Devinasi. Okay, so I don't know, I just called out on Krishna Loka and there's Tredas Prabhu. Yes, Prabhu, would you like to share a little bit as far as you would like to say, maybe about Lokanath Swami's talk, maybe something else? This, by the way, dear devotees, is Tredas Prabhu, Srila Prabhupada's disciple, an amazing preacher. He's been in Italy for decades and preaching and cultivating. So that's all I'd like to say. I don't want to take your time. Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
I have many memories of His Holiness Tamal Krishna Maharaj, and I guess beginning with Radha Damodar. I don't think we heard anything much about the Radha Damodar party.
Yeah, not so far.
No, I think so far nobody spoke about.
Not so much. So go ahead.
So maybe I can speak about that as.
I just want one thing, Lokanath Swami Maharaj. I don't know how much time you have in your schedule. You asked for some feedback about your talk, and this is going to open up another nectar vault. So before we maybe get lost in that, I want to thank you for your contribution today. We really appreciated it, and your gorgeous background with Vita. Is that Vital and Rukmini, right? Yeah, wonderful, wonderful. Yes, yeah, I learned from you. I never heard of this years ago. Anyway, so I just want to thank you, just for the sake of it, that we don't, so in case you need to go, please know that we all appreciate so much your contribution and your love for Tamal Krishna Goswami. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Yes, Tredas Prabhu, take us to Radha Damodar.
This is because I joined in San Francisco, but Maharaj had already gone on. He'd already started his tour of the world with Srila Prabhupada, spreading Krishna consciousness to so many different countries. But then in 1975, I guess it was, he had been Srila Prabhupada's right arm and GBC in India. But after a number of years, I think 4 years, he had a great desire to preach in the West. As anyone who's preached in both knows, that there's a special taste preaching in the West, as there is a different taste preaching in India. So he came back to America and promised Prabhupada to do something substantial, as always. And so he joined Vishnu Jan Maharaj, who was his old friend even from before they joined together, Krishna conscious Srila Prabhupada, in San Francisco. And he joined together with him, and at that time, Vishnu Jan Maharaj he was doing a festival program, traveling festival program, but he had not started with book distribution. So Tamal Krishna Maharaj, when he returned and he joined him for his festival program, he decided to, because he understood from seeing the situation in America that the thing that gave Prabhupada the greatest pleasure was distributing his books. So he initiated the book distribution program with the help of certain devotees like Yogesh Chandra and others. And they would come to visit our temple in many temples. They would visit many temples, and they would invite devotees to come with them, to travel along with them, much to the displeasure of the temple presidents. Many devotees would go off with the adventure to travel and preach with the two sannyasis. So I was the temple president, and he came, and a number of our devotees left and went with the Radha Damodar program. And then at a certain point, as they say, I was the president, but at a certain point, as they say in America, if you can't beat them, join them. So I also left everything and joined the Radha Damodar party, much to my, yes, very nice. They would give this publicity in the Bhaktividya magazine. Any young man who would like to experience a transcendental adventure could go with them for a day or a week or forever and travel. And this is when, this picture here you see is when Prabhupada came to New York. I think it was 1976. And they offered to bring Srila Prabhupada to Gitanagari on one of the buses, the Radha Damodar buses. Because these buses, they had finally got to 6 buses, I think. And each bus was converted into a temple. It was all the seats taken out and all opened up, and deities were installed in each of the buses. The main bus was Radha Damodar, the deities of Radha, Shri Radha Damodar. And this is when I joined, when I left the temple and joined the Radha Damodar group, was in that picture there, was in when they installed Gaura-Nitai deities in Chicago, at the temple in Chicago. Srila Prabhupada was there present, and he gave initiation. And Tamal Krishna Maharaj, you know the famous story when Prabhupada was quite upset that he had left India because he needed him very much in India. But then Tamal Krishna Maharaj, to appease Srila Prabhupada, he had all of the, because they made many devotees. That's me on the second from the left, far left. On that side. And they made many devotees, many brahmacharis from the universities, giving festival programs at the universities. And he had them each, he gave each one a flower and had them each come into Prabhupada's room one by one and offer flower to Prabhupada. So Prabhupada was appeased and said, okay. Because he always expected Srila Tamal Krishna Maharaj to do something substantial, wherever he was, to do something substantial. So he saw that he was doing something very substantial, making so many devotees. And so when I left this devotee, he picked me up and we drove to Chicago. And I remember going into the bus. Tamal Krishna Maharaj was in the bus outside in the back parking lot of the Chicago temple. And he greeted me and said, so he said, you can welcome to the party rather than the party. So, well, I'm actually the temple president in Boston. I'm married. So that's okay. You can. He let me stay in the Sankirtan group. There he is. This is Tamal Krishna Maharaj preaching to a student, and who probably became a devotee after. He was so, whatever he did, he was so focused on it. This is Vishnu Jan Maharaj. Cooking, he was also, besides being the best chanter, he was also a fabulous cook, especially gulab jamuns, halva. Sometimes they would live on halva and sweet rice. You can ask Lakshmi Nrsimha Prabhu, who was on his personal party. And so we were there for this festival, installation of the Gaura-Nitai deities, because he started with one bus, but Tamal Krishna Maharaj, he never liked to do anything small. So he, in a short time, within a year, they had already expanded to 4 and then finally to 6 buses. And he had invited a number of, it's just 4 buses, but then there, I think, another couple that were added. And each bus had group, Sankirtan groups that were connected to each bus. So each had a van, a smaller van, would travel out from the bus. And these are the Shri Radha Damodar deities who are now residing in Gitanagari in Pennsylvania. And these are their most dear servants, Vishnu Jan Maharaj and Tamal Krishna Maharaj. They've traveled together on the main bus, the Radha Damodar bus. And making devotees wherever they went, in universities all over the country. And
Could you maybe tell some of the outrageous things that happened? Like, I mean, going on distributing so many books on 5 peanuts or whatever. Even, I mean,
we had very nice prashad. We had very nice prashad. At least on my group, we always had nice prashad. There was no the austerity was going out and distributing books wherever, anywhere and everywhere, all over America. The buses were spread all over. Each bus had an area, and they were spread all over America. I'd like to pass this on. I don't know how much time I have, but I'd like to pass on in 1976, because this Radha Party was very glorious. It actually became the biggest book distribution group in the world. As a group, the total number of books were going out was the top in the world. We had beaten even the Temple of Los Angeles, which is the biggest book distribution temple in the world. But in the meanwhile, as traveling to temples, the enthusiasm of the brahmacharis and sannyasis who were on the group, they would invite devotees, not exactly with the permission, as that happened to me in Boston, not exactly with the permission of the temple president. So they began to, we want to call it stealing devotee brahmacharis from all the temples all over America. So in 1976, it became quite a problem for the temples to be able to maintain themselves and maintain the temple, losing their brahmacharis who were doing Sankhya book distribution. So all the temple presidents gathered together in Mayapur in 1976 for the first, 1974 was the first big Mayapur Vrindavan festival with Srila Prabhupada. But in 1976, by that time, it had been established as the Mayapur Vrindavan yearly festival where devotees from all over the world would go to see Srila Prabhupada. And all the temple presidents had gathered together in a group comparing notes to how they had lost their devotees. So they were quite angry. They had approached Srila Prabhupada and they wanted to meet him. Prabhupada found himself in the middle of this, with all of his young disciples, with this fight between the Radha Damodar party with Sannyasi and Brahmachari and the temple president, Grihastha temple president. And somehow or other, I don't know why, but Tamal Krishna Maharaj invited me to be his servant when we went to Mayapur that year, his personal servant. And everybody said, wow, watch out. Be careful, you're going to get it. You're going to get, he's so heavy with his servant. But somehow by Krishna's mercy, I understood from the first day, I have to just surrender completely, not have any thought of my own needs or whatever I want to do, and just completely surrender and think only about how to please him, how to serve him. And I did that. I adjusted my consciousness like that, and he was very sweet with me. I had such a wonderful memory of that time. He didn't chastise me even once. He didn't get upset, because it was very difficult. Because in the end of the day, after the meetings, Prabhupada took the side of the temple presidents, the Grihasthas. He didn't take the side of the sannyasis and brahmacharis. And this, of course, the famous story when Tamal Krishna Maharaj was sent to China. And I was in the room, I was his servant, was in the room when he came back after going to Srila Prabhupada and receiving this order, this news. And also it's the same time that Krishna Jan Maharaj left. I was also in the room when he came back from the walk with Srila Prabhupada after receiving getting this idea. Anyway, that's a different story, but I'll tell that also. And because what happened is that Prabhupada he defended the temples and the importance of maintaining the temples and the authority of the temple presidents. And Tamal Krishna Maharaj tried to defend their program. And Prabhupada, he got very upset, and he said, "I'd take away all your service." You know, he said, "Well, we're doing so much, it's doing so much." I said, "I don't know." But this is right after one morning after this program when I think it was Tamal Krishna Maharaj. He said, "What can I do now? I might as well go to the moon," something like that. Prabhupada said that, or might as well go to the moon or to China. Just kind of like saying, I might as well go to the moon. And the next morning during Mangal Arati, Trivikram Maharaj came down to Srila Prabhupada and down to Tamal Krishna Maharaj, who was in Mangal Arati, and he tapped him on the shoulder. And being so astute, he immediately understood what was going on. And he said, "Oh no." And then he was brought up to Srila Prabhupada, and Srila Prabhupada told him, I think Krishna was speaking through you. I think Krishna was saying something through you. I think you should go to China." And he said, "No. No, this is when he said, no, I have all this service in America with the Radha Damodar. We're distributing, we're such a successful teaching program." Prabhupada said, "I don't care. I take it away from you, and if you don't go to China, I take away all your service, and you can just sit down here and chant Hare Krishna." And I remember when he came back in the room, I immediately saw that he was really down. He was really disturbed. So I made him a glass of orange juice. I went and got some more. We made a glass of orange juice and tried to. I didn't really know exactly what was going on. I hadn't been in the room as Srila Prabhupada was. But in different devotees, they offered Prabhupada, Trivikram Maharaj, Guru Kripa. They said, "Well, I can go to China." And Srila Prabhupada knew that the only person who could, as Prabhupada said, he can walk through fire for me. He said he's the only one who can do this. He said, no, I want him to go, no one else. Only he can do this. And so Prabhupada insisted, and of course, as his greatest servant, he surrendered and took on the mission. That's a whole story. That's not it. How we began the China mission.
What I just came to my mind as you were saying that his bosom friend Vishnujan Swami, whom he joined with Mark, the flute player, they had done so much preaching together. Musician, they were, he was the flute player, but Vishnujan Swami was also flute. Anyway, they were very close, and then they launched this successful program which you just described, and then this was taken away by Srila Prabhupada because of all the other things, and as well his dear friend Vishnujan Swami disappeared. I wasn't really aware that these two things occurred almost in the same period.
Not almost. I think even a couple of days later, there in Mayapur, Vishnujan Maharaj was on a morning walk, and he hadn't had a fall down. I think what had happened was that because when he joined, he had been married, and his wife had a child right after that. He moved into the temple, and his previous wife, very shortly thereafter, had a child. And she, I think one time at Rath Yatra, you came up to me and said, "You're going all over the world to saving people, but what about us? What about this child here?" And he had maybe some second thought. He just thought a little. It was only a thought. It wasn't like he did anything or he fell down. But he thought about it, considered, because he was such a kind-hearted, kind, sweet devotee, caring about everyone that he maybe thought about it. And he considered that a fall down, just the thought of thinking about it. And as anyone would have thought about it.
Your son.
But so he was on a morning walk with Srila Prabhupada, and he asked Srila Prabhupada about Junior Haridas, the story in Chaitanya Charitamrita kind of just come out. Chaitanya Chaitanya not too long, a year or so before that. And Prabhupada said, yes, that's the punishment. If a sannyasi falls down, then he should go and drown himself in the Triveni. And he was up close to where Srila Prabhupada was, and he heard that, and then he dropped. There he is. He heard that, and he dropped back on the morning walk from, this is Junior Haridas, after he left his body and became and he was singing for Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But he dropped back, and he didn't hear that Prabhupada immediately after that said, but we don't do that. In our line, that's not necessary. We don't do that. But he heard it, and he dropped back. He came back to the room. I was sitting in the room, and I remember him coming in with a very serious face. He grabbed, all he had was a bag. He had this cloth shoulder bag with his Bhagavad Gita and a change of dhoti in it. And he grabbed his bag and he left. And we're still waiting for the third volume of Radha Damodar Vilas, the book written by Asiki Prabhu, to reveal that he has quite strong evidence that he actually did. From there, he left and he went to train, and he went to the Triveni and left his body there, because no one has ever seen him since then.
So these two things
That
occur.
happened, and he was given the order to go to China. And
That's just devastating. I mean, it's like a double blow, to say the least. It's like,
yeah.
I mean, I don't know how an ordinary person could stand that.
Yeah, he was quite. He was not one to show emotion, but he was quite upset. He was quite.
So you were there as his servant. Of course, that's a different relationship, but you were also his godfather. So could you share anything that, if you think it's useful or appropriate, like how did he seem to process those traumatic events?
Like I said, when he came back in the room after the thing about China, originally we didn't know. It's not that we knew that Vishnu John Maharaj had left to go leave his body in Triveni. No one knew where he went. And for years after, no one knew for sure. They still were waiting. He was going to. Because sometimes devotees would leave the movement, disappear into the material world, and then after a few years, they would kind of appear again. You would see them. They would appear in some temples. So in the beginning, nobody knew where he went and what happened exactly. So he didn't speak about it. All I remember was his expression when he came in the room after the whole exchange with Srila Prabhupada about China, that he was quite upsetting. He was quite upset. Like I said, I brought him some orange juice because I could see. Because to be his servant, like he serves Srila Prabhupada, you have to understand what he needs before he asks you. That's what he said. That's what a good servant is. That you should understand what to do even before he asks you to do it. So I was trying to be in tune with what, and I could see he just needed to be peaceful atmosphere, and give him some orange juice. Because it was quite a shock, because he felt as maybe I displeased Srila Prabhupada with our group because it was successful, but in the end we had a problem with the temples. But then we came back to America, and he began. It's a long story, but he began working on the China mission, exploring. As anything he did with intense thoroughness about it. And he studied the whole history of China and the nature of the people and how to go in, and he devised a plan how people can go there with him, together with Mr. Duna. And then the Radha Damodar group, they kind of merged into different temples. One group went to Itanagi, our group, we took over the New York temple. And then we didn't see so much of him because he went to Hong Kong.
Yeah.
And then began that. That's my memories of being with him in the Radha Damodar party, and especially at that crucial moment in his service to Srila Prabhupada.
Would you say that he's a devotee that has impacted your spiritual life?
Oh, of course.
And in what way? How do you like take inspiration from him now?
His total dedication to Srila Prabhupada's mission. I can't even dream of doing a tiny little fraction of service to the mission of Srila Prabhupada, because he's, as you explained, is just an infinite number of services and accomplishments in spreading Krishna consciousness for Srila Prabhupada. And it's like one of the main pillars of Prabhupada's ISKCON movement. And I had the good fortune, especially that fact that he was considered so heavy with the servants, whereas I experienced a whole different personality. But then the person that to be able to experience that, you had to surrender completely. The only way was because he saw that he didn't accept not surrender. Didn't accept that you want to be close to him and you weren't totally surrendered. And so I saw a very sweet side of his caring about devotees, his caring about his godbrothers, caring about then later his disciples. But his fatherly caring, and I remember he sent me into Delhi when we were there in Mayapur. He sent me to Delhi because we also had to buy all these pandals, all these cloths for the festival groups, the different bus groups. We had to get many things in Delhi. So he sent me and he said, so when you go, because I'd never been in India. I'd been in India once before in '74 and I didn't like it at all. It was like, I got so sick and it was just a bad memory. I didn't really have any idea how to move in India. But he told me, so now you go to Delhi and then you should go to this place, the Birla Mandir, and then you go behind the Birla Mandir, and then there's this little place where they serve prasadam for two rupees for all you can eat. One really good rice dal chapatis made right on this burner on the little cow dung stove. And
so he knew his way around in India.
Oh yeah, I mean, he knew his way around.
Yeah. Nice.
But he's caring about me, so make sure you go like this and like that, how to do it.
Yeah. And your wife is also Tamal Krishna Goswami, disciple, right?
Yes.
Krishna
Hare
Loka.
Krishna.
Yes, that's another.
He entrusted her to me.
Yes, wonderful.
He made sure before he left that she was, I don't know, good hands or not, but
In good hands, Prabhu, for sure. How long you are together now? How many years?
27 years.
Just see, it's another Shakti miracle there. Successful preaching devotee couple. I would love to hear more, but I got this sign from the organizers that we have to start winding down, yes, because we have another session and we don't want to, devotees need to clean and chant and do whatever. We want you back, if possible, in a few hours, everyone. And you too, Tradas Prabhu. On behalf of everyone, I'd like to thank you for the spontaneous emission of your. It's very special that you were in that room and that you could see that he didn't lose it. He just processed it, and then he went to work on it, and he was completely successful. I mean, very successful, as we can see in the China mission. So that's a nice details that you gave. The orange juice, I'll remember that. Sweet. Yeah, sometimes the little things are meaningful, always actually. Okay, so speaking of the little things, so thank you very much. And Krishna Loka, you're not off the hook. another time, please. That would be great. These are friends of mine. Tredas Prabhu came to preach and share inspired book distribution in Amsterdam in the late 80s. I still remember you dragged us out on the street and you were like that, like you still are. And Krishna Loka, we spent times with around Srila Gurudev in Vrindavan and in Italy and Paris, and so yeah, you're both dear to me, and I'm so happy to see you're still together and preaching strongly and cultivating so many people. Thank you so much, a great inspiration. Okay, so dear devotees, thank you so much, both of you. We're going to end, but not before one thing. I was saying, speaking of the little things, I was also told that our organizer, Dhruva Maharaj Prabhu, who has organized this whole event, it has his birthday today. Yeah, it's birthday weekend. Yesterday my son, today it's him. And a little bird told me this. So I do feel that we need to honor him. Actually it said that the Vaishnavas on their birthday, they are not taking, but they're giving. So now we have another proof, because he has his birthday and he organized this whole wonderful conference where yesterday I was told there were 100 devotees live online. I mean, imagine if we share all this, take it on your platform. I'm just mixing two things here. But the thing is, it's very important that this beautiful, encouraging information gets out to this world in this troubled time, where people have time on their hands and they don't know what to do with it. This forceful, inspirational Vaishnava history needs to be spread. So if you have a Facebook account, you can go to TKG Nectar Drops. This program is broadcast live there. It's easy to share. So if you feel it in your heart that you like to do that, please do. And then we can actually spread this much more widely than right now. Let's see. Who needs to leave? No? Oh, okay. Hare Krishna. That's Deval. You're welcome to leave also. Everyone's busy. Now, how are we going to celebrate Dhruva Maharaj's birthday? Can we have him in the view, please? School of Bhakti. Can you put in main view? Maybe you already do that. And I'm just not seeing. I'm still in the Tredas planet. Can I? I see you both. Where is Dhruva? Can I see him also? What should I do?
Dhruva Maharaj, that's his iPhone, Daval's iPhone. That's Dhruva Maharaj. Unfortunately, he's not here today.
He need to leave. Okay. Oh well, he may be busy. Well, then still we can sing because Krishna will hear. He's in the heart of Dhruva, as we know. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Dhruva Maharaj. Happy birthday to you. Hare Krishna to you. Hare Krishna to you. Hare Krishna, dear Vaishnava. Hare Krishna to you. Haribol, Dhruva Maharaj, thank you so much. I hope you get to hear this later. And maybe he's sneaking in the corner. That's possible too. It's okay. We appreciate your gift of sharing and connecting all these nice devotees around the world with His Holiness. I just happened to pick up this one, Tamal Krishna Goswami. It's some holy place in India, in the center. Jai Shri Gurudev. All right, so this was session number 4. We made it, and we're going to be back in this afternoon. The schedules are changing because I guess devotees are becoming attracted, and they're also wanting to speak. So what I know of this afternoon session is, okay, there it is, very good. So we have Satsarup Maharaj. I don't know, last time I heard him speak was years ago, of course, that's my bad, but I really look forward to hear Maharaj speaking about his association with his early time godbrother, Tamal Krishna Goswami. And then we have illustrious couple, preachers, Mahatma Das, initiating Guru himself, and an amazing preacher, and his good wife, Janava Mataji. The wives are called Janava, this yesterday also was a Janava, but she's very different. She made a movie called Women of Bhakti. She has lots to say. Gurudev really appreciated her intellect. So together they will conduct another session. Then we have His Holiness Hridayananda Das Goswami, who lured Srila Gurudev into the academic field, we can say. He'll speak more about it probably. And the always inspirational His Holiness Satchidananda Swami. I mean, whatever you have planned, scoop it out of the way and at least try to hear it, even if you have to drive or cook or clean, hear it, because it is unique what we are experiencing here. Okay, so thank you so much for your time, and especially the speakers, but everybody here. And the School of Bhakti was conducting the event. And when is it going to be? UK time it'll be. Can somebody enlighten me? How many hours from now are we continuing?
It's about 4 hours from now.
About or what exactly?
4 hours, 10 minutes is the next session.
Okay, that's good. That's pretty good. Okay, so we can get a lot done in between, right?
Absolutely.
We're good. We're efficient. We're empowered, hopefully. Okay, have a great afternoon. And if we don't see you again, thanks for your time and look forward to this afternoon session. Hare Krishna. Srila Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Assembled devotees ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande. Haribo. Jai. See you soon. Soon. Come back. Do it.